I felt like a caged bird. The person I loved most handed me over to his nephew, all for a meticulously planned revenge. The year I met James Parker, I had just sent my biological father to prison. He was an alcoholic, and whenever he staggered home with a bottle in hand, I would hide my sister in the closet and signal her to stay silent and hidden. Then, the thunderous blows would rain down on me as I curled up on the floor, protecting my head.
You worthless girl. Why didn't you run off with your cheap mother? Raising you is a waste of money. Tomorrow, you'll go out and earn me some drinking money.
Memories of those years flashed through my mind, and thinking about my bleak future, I gave up resisting. Suddenly, my sister's cries drew my father's attention. He squinted and began searching for the source of the sound, getting closer to the closet.
No, not her.
Panicking, I endured the pain and got up. Just as he was about to open the closet door, I picked up his bottle from the floor and struck him hard on the back of the head. Blood trickled down from his head as he turned to look at me in shock before collapsing in front of me.
Sister, is Daddy gone? If Daddy is gone, he won't hurt us anymore.
No one will hurt us again. I'll always protect you.
I quickly staged the scene to look like an attack, even injuring my own leg to ensure my father would be sent to prison. The police arrived swiftly, and I lay near the door, barely conscious. As I was taken to the ambulance, I faintly heard the crowd condemning my father. He was never a good man. In the end, he was sentenced to 6 years in prison, and my sister and I finally escaped his grasp. To take good care of Bella, I sent her to Aunt Mary's house while I went out to earn money. James Parker was 6 years older than me. I met him at a spicy food contest, where the prize for eating the infamous Indian ghost pepper was $50,000. I forced myself to eat until I nearly passed out. Midway through, a bottle of water appeared in front of me. Without thinking, I grabbed it and drank, then continued devouring the peppers. Unsurprisingly, I won.
Lily Moore, you're so lucky. If James Parker hadn't given you his water, you wouldn't have made it.
James Parker, what a lonely name.
I caught up to him and handed him half of the prize money. Thank you for helping me.
No need. That bottle of water isn't worth $25,000.
Then he walked away, leaving me with only his back. People who entered such extreme contests were usually desperate for money. I knew he was as poor as I was. After our brief encounter, I returned home. I sent part of the prize money to Aunt Mary for my sister's expenses.
Aunt Mary, I've sent you this month's money. Please use it for Bella's tutoring fees.
The phone call switched from Aunt Mary's indifferent tone to my sister's sweet voice.
Sister, I miss you. When will you come to Aunt Mary's house? I'll take you to the hill to eat cherries.
Soon. When I earn enough money, we won't be separated anymore.
I returned to my job at the restaurant. The pay of 120 yuan per hour was crucial for me. The only problem was the manager, who was rather inappropriate.
Lily Moore, your performance has been off lately. Come to my office after your shift.
I went to his office, where he sat with his legs crossed, smoking and staring at me. He put out his cigarette and loosened his tie, approaching me.
Lily Moore, there are 2 types of people who get promoted quickly here. Those who double the revenue with their talent and those who are willing to make personal sacrifices. Do you understand?
Manager, I'm sorry, but I don't understand.
I was desperate for money, but not enough to compromise my dignity. Holding back tears, I shook my head, which only angered him. He slapped me hard and began tearing at my clothes.
Ring, ring, ring.
The fire alarm went off. The next moment, the door was kicked open, and a hand grabbed mine, pulling me out. It was him, James Parker.
What are you doing here?
I came to deliver an invoice to your manager and saw he was busy.
So, what did you hear?
Nothing. I just accidentally hit the alarm.
Let's go. I'll take you to get something to eat.
I followed closely behind him, feeling a rare sense of comfort.
If you need money, I can introduce you to a job.
I put down my chopsticks, wiped the corner of my mouth, and met his gaze. Okay, but the hourly rate at the Western restaurant is $120 per hour. Can it not be lower than that? I really need the money.
No problem.
He could see my embarrassment. And so, I became Mia's tutor. What I didn't expect was that James Parker also taught there, making me his colleague. One afternoon, I discovered Mia played the piano beautifully. James was her teacher and would occasionally practice on the first floor. His fingers danced on the black and white keys, distinct and mesmerizing. You're amazing! You can play the piano too.
I was adopted by my foster parents when I was young. My mom was a piano teacher, and I learned a bit from her.
Where are they now?
They've passed away.
Noticing his somber expression, I didn't dare to ask further. Surprisingly, a few days later at a dinner, the employer's words turned out to be prophetic. James Parker did have a family. He was the long-lost youngest son of Mr. Parker. Just as life was stabilizing, an unexpected event occurred. Bella fell ill. I left quietly one night and arrived at Aunt Mary's house late. Seeing my frail sister on the bed, I turned and questioned. Why didn't you take her to the hospital? I send so much money every month, and this is how you take care of my sister?
Do you know how expensive it is to raise a child? What can you do with the $1,000 you send every month?
I glared at her fiercely. Perhaps intimidated by my menacing look, she put down the seeds and reluctantly said,
All right, I'll call a car. Let's get to the hospital.
After a series of examinations, the hospital staff looked at the report and shook their heads.
You need to be prepared. This is a very serious condition.
I tried hard to hold back my tears, pressing down my emotions with both hands. Money, how much money is needed? Just save my sister. I'm begging you, doctor, she's all I have. I slid off the chair and knelt in front of the doctor, clutching his pant leg, pleading. Please, she's my only family. Please. With that, I kowtowed several times. Even Aunt Mary, feeling some pity, came over to help me up. The doctor only said they would try their best, leaving me kneeling there alone. Through the glass of the hospital room, Bella lay quietly on the bed, so lonely and fragile.
There are a few thousand left on this card. Use it to pay for Bella's medical expenses.
I opened my mouth but couldn't say a word. The next day, I started calling everyone in my contacts to borrow money, finally scraping together enough for the first treatment. I watched the news on the TV in front of me.
Recently, the CEO of the Jiang Group successfully reunited with his son who had been missing for over 20 years.
On the screen, James Parker stood beside Mr. Parker in a well-tailored dark suit, looking so tall and handsome. Just a few days ago, we stood side by side, but now, we were worlds apart. I could only wish him well. Congratulations, you finally made it to the upper class. A month later, Bella's condition worsened. Following the doctor's advice, I transferred her back to the city for treatment. I juggled between the hospital and my job at the hotel. Occasionally, I would see news about James Parker on TV, mostly about him becoming the vice president of the Jiang Group. He had risen to great heights, but he never contacted me again. Our lives seemed to have no further intersection. I was busy earning medical fees for Bella, working tirelessly day and night. I had no time to learn about his current life. However, that day, as soon as I changed into my uniform at the hotel, the manager called me to the banquet hall on the 13th floor to help serve dishes. As soon as I reached the door, I noticed the sign, Parker Group Banquet. Parker Group, could James Parker be here too? I carefully pushed the door open with my head down, but inevitably, I saw James Parker at one of the round tables. He was chatting with Mia, making her laugh, and she playfully hit his chest.
Hello, this is the pine nut sausage. Please enjoy.
James suddenly looked up, startling me so much that I almost dropped the dish. I quickly retreated. My phone buzzed with another hospital bill reminder. Finally, it was time to get off work. As I was unbuttoning my uniform in the locker room, the door suddenly opened and closed behind me. I turned around and was pulled into an embrace. In the dim room, he rested his chin on my head and slowly spoke.
You are truly heartless, disappearing for so long.
Before I could explain, he continued.
Why did you come back? Is he not treating you well?
I didn't know who James was referring to. I just stared blankly out the window at the city's nightscape, thinking about Bella, who was hooked up to life support machines, waiting for me to get the money to save her. James was different now. He had the money to save Bella.
Because I need money.
He let go of me and sneered.
So you came to me for money?
Consider it a loan. I'll repay you, no matter what.
There was no time for pride. Whether he reciprocated my feelings didn't matter. I needed to cure Bella, I just needed the money.
Fine. I don't need you to repay me. Next Monday afternoon, at the Star Sea swimming pool.
James stormed out in anger. I collapsed to the ground, tears soaking my clothes. Meeting him again, and still in such a pitiful state. On Monday, I arrived at the Star Sea swimming pool on time. As soon as I entered, I saw James lounging on a deck chair, wearing sunglasses, looking relaxed.
I'm here as promised.
James didn't speak. He waved his hand, and his assistant handed me a stack of documents. I opened them to find detailed information about John Parker, the young master of the Parker family. Everything from his habits to his past relationships and his type of woman was listed.
What does this mean?
James took off his sunglasses and looked at the deep pool in front of him.
John likes women who can swim. 3 million.
James, explain yourself.
I was starting to panic.
What I mean is, seduce him. If you catch the fish, the angler will naturally reward you.
You're sick.
All my romantic feelings were instantly crushed. I stood up to leave, but his cold voice stopped me.
What, you don't need the money anymore?
I hesitated. 3 million was a huge temptation for me. I couldn't lose Bella. The assistant handed me a business card at the right moment. I took a deep breath and accepted it. When I returned to the hospital, I saw a crowd gathered outside Bella's room. Puzzled, I walked over and saw doctors and nurses urgently trying to save her.
Bella!
She's stabilized for now, but you need to gather the money quickly. She can't hold on much longer.
I collapsed outside the room, thinking for a long time before taking out the business card.
I agree, but you have to give me half the money first.
No problem. I trust my judgment and your abilities.
Making a deal with the devil, I would eventually become one too. I hired a caregiver for Bella with some money and began researching John Parker. James had his secretary assist me, and within a month, I had mastered all the sports John enjoyed, except for golf.
Spread your legs a bit, relax your body, and keep your eyes forward.
James was teaching me hand in hand from the side, so close that I could see the texture of his skin. This intimate posture made me blush, and naturally, the ball veered off course.
Focus.
I know, I don't need you to teach me.
This Sunday, John will be at this club. Make sure he notices you.
Why do you want him to fall for me? Is he your enemy?
Don't ask what you shouldn't. Knowing too much won't do you any good.
I pondered why James always seemed so dark and mysterious. On Sunday, I made a hole-in-one, successfully catching John's attention. He politely had his assistant hand me a business card, but I didn't accept it.
Not sincere enough. Are you going to have your assistant marry your wife too?
I smiled brightly and turned to wait in the lobby. Soon, I saw John hand his equipment to his assistant and walk towards me.
Are you waiting for my sincerity?
His words made me laugh.
No, I'm waiting for my friend.
Your golf skills are impressive. Can we play together next time? Teach me, a novice.
If I hadn't memorized John's profile, I might have believed he was a novice.
So, you're the young master of the Parker Group?
I'm just living off my parents' success.
I smiled, pocketed the card, and found an excuse to leave.
He gave me his card.
He read it but didn't reply. In the following weeks, John occasionally invited me out, and the activities were ones I had trained for. Seeing the growing admiration in John's eyes, I knew I was close to success. I reported my progress to James while continuing my act with John. One day, John had his secretary deliver a white dress to me. Then, he called.
Lily, I'd like to take you to a family gathering tonight. Would you like to come?
Sure.
John sounded as happy as a child on the phone, and I felt a pang of guilt. After all, John hadn't done anything wrong. But I really needed that money. And I wanted a reason to stay connected with him a bit longer. At the start of the evening, he held my hand as we entered the venue, and I heard the crowd's gasps.
Grandpa, Uncle, this is my girlfriend, Lily Moore.
Mr. Parker leaned on his cane, saying nothing, just motioning for us to sit quickly. James sat nearby, sipping tea, and nodded slightly. He showed no reaction to John holding my hand. I couldn't tell what I felt inside. My fingers tightened around the water glass.
Lily, are you nervous? Don't worry, my family is easy to get along with.
At that moment, Emily Lee walked in. She sat to James's right and laughed when she saw me.
Lily, you really surprised me. I thought John's girlfriend would be another internet celebrity, but it's you.
Her sarcastic words were embarrassing for anyone to hear. Before I could retort, John spoke first.
Emily, you're my idol. You managed to pursue my icy uncle for over a year. What, desperate to get married?
I chuckled, and Emily's face changed. Then, Mr. Parker cleared his throat, and everyone quietly began eating. Near the end, Mr. Parker wiped his mouth with a napkin and started questioning me.
Miss Moore, what do you do?
I currently work as a yoga instructor at a friend's studio.
Not tutoring anymore?
Tutoring shows good grades, unlike some who are hopeless. And Grandpa, I want to marry Lily.
I was shocked. Seeing Mr. Parker's silence, John added,
I'm serious. I really want to marry Lily. Grandpa.
I glanced at James, who continued sipping his tea, indifferent to what might happen between John and me. Even now, I couldn't understand him. He wanted me to attract John, and then what? Let me marry him?
Miss Moore, what about you? What do you think of my grandson?
John is a fine person,
James, who hadn't spoken all night, blew on his tea and slowly said,
If John truly likes her, we as family should support him.
His words stung. I felt a chill and excused myself, saying I felt unwell. Back home, I soaked in the bathtub, my thoughts in disarray. My phone was filled with missed calls and countless messages from John. I ignored them all. After drying my hair, I curled up on the sofa, dimmed the living room lights, and watched a romance movie on TV. Watching the passionate kiss between the leads, tears streamed down my face. Soon, I drifted off to sleep. In my dreams, I seemed to hear the door unlock. Then, a warm embrace carried me to the bedroom. I knew it was him. I clung to his neck, breathing onto his face.
Shoo, sleep.
Only then did I smell the strong scent of alcohol on him.
You've been drinking.
He shifted to a comfortable position, lying beside me. I gazed at his handsome profile in the moonlight. Then I turned over, giving him a deep kiss.
Did you drink because you heard John wanted to marry me? Were you jealous?
He didn't answer, just deepened the kiss. The next morning, James was gone, as if he had never been there. I picked up a nightgown from the floor, put it on, and was about to get a drink from the fridge when the doorbell rang.
Lily, why didn't you respond last night?
John stood there with breakfast, looking like a forlorn kitten.
I went to bed early. Sorry for worrying you.
He seemed to accept the excuse and didn't press further. But remembering his proposal last night, I felt the need to clarify.
John, I'm not ready to marry you. At least not now.
I know, I was too hasty.
A year passed like this. By day, John Parker and I were known as the perfect couple, but by night, I would appear like a ghost at James Parker's private villa. I wasn't sure if I was doing this for Bella's treatment or for something else. Caught between two men, I had lost my sanity.
Do what you need to do, and once it's done, I'll help you save your sister.
I followed his gaze out the window, looking at the dazzling city lights.
You want to use me to get back at the Parker family, don't you?
James Parker's eyes swept over me, his tone indifferent.
Most of the skyscrapers in this city belong to the Parker family, but people don't know whose sacrifices built this splendor.
I know, Grace Johnson, right?
Hearing me call out his adoptive mother's name, he suddenly turned and grabbed my neck in a fit of rage. He only let go when I was nearly out of breath.
Lily Moore, what do you know?
I know you're not really a Parker. The deceased brother was, right?
James Parker suddenly burst into maniacal laughter, looking terrifying.
Finally, someone smart, Lily.
He walked over, holding me in his arms, kissing the scars on my neck.
Do you know? When she found me, I was as small as a stray dog. She gave me a home. And my brother, the real son of the Parker family, his name was John Johnson. Then a fire took everything away, and from that day on, I lived in his place.
You want to avenge him?
Yes, I want to avenge her.
And what about me?
James Parker didn't answer. He thought he had me completely under his control, that I would obediently become his tool for revenge against the Parker family. I wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. For the sake of 30 million, what had I sacrificed? I had become a bird in James Parker's hand. He told me everything without a care, each word reminding me to behave. Whenever James Parker mentioned his adoptive mother, his eyes softened, the same way I looked at him.
You're all I have left, Lily. She's gone. You wouldn't want me to be sad, right?
I felt dizzy, as if everything was spiraling out of control. In a daze, my phone rang urgently.
Miss Moore, I think you should come over as soon as possible.
I woke up from my stupor and rushed to the hospital. Outside the room, I saw Bella looking extremely weak and grabbed the doctor's hand, asking incessantly,
"What happened? Wasn't her condition under control?"
The doctor helplessly explained that Bella's body had developed resistance to the medication, and there was no immediate solution. I walked in, dazed, and placed Bella's favorite doll beside her as she slept. The next day, John Parker appeared in the hospital room. I wasn't surprised. With his capabilities, he must have known long ago, and I never intended to hide it from him.
Hello, Bella. I'm John Parker.
Bella was delighted with the toys John brought, and they quickly bonded. In the afternoon, as I walked John to the door, he suddenly hugged me.
Lily, you've been through so much. My heart aches for you.
I tried to respond to his embrace, treating it as a brief respite. But then I saw James Parker with a fruit basket and gifts, turning to leave. I quickly let go of John, made an excuse about having something urgent, and hurriedly chased after him.
"James Parker!"
I banged on his car window, and he slowly rolled it down, revealing a cold expression. All my grievances and tears surged up at once.
"Why? Why are you treating me like this? James Parker, what am I to you?"
He ignored my breakdown and tears, silently instructing the driver to drive away. I composed myself and ran into John in the lobby.
Lily, you've been crying. What's wrong? What happened?
I made an excuse about just coming from the doctor's office and feeling down.
You don't need to attend the banquet tonight. I'll explain to Grandpa.
Bella's condition couldn't wait any longer. I thought of the contract and the grand scheme I had planned for James Parker. A woman trapped by love also enjoys seeing the one who abandoned her heartbroken. I arrived as promised. That evening, when Mr. Parker announced that John would be in charge of the company's new overseas project, the room erupted in applause. Only James Parker's face showed a hint of surprise and displeasure. Originally, the project was his, but I had convinced John to fight for it. The usually carefree young master of the Parker family had started managing the family business, and Mr. Parker's favoritism was evident. John took the opportunity to propose to me at the banquet. When he knelt down and pulled out a diamond ring, I panicked and searched the crowd for James Parker. He stood in the corner, swirling a champagne glass, watching like a spectator. Seeing him, my heart settled for a moment. I had intended to toy with James Parker, but now he was in control. Under his watchful gaze, John slipped the ring onto my finger and stood up to kiss me. His kiss was gentle, and I responded, but my attention was on my phone. It buzzed with a message from James Parker. After the event, I read the message, feeling my blood run cold.
Lily, help me once. Marry John.
It was me. I had orchestrated my own tragedy with John. And after losing the important project, James Parker never contacted me again, avoiding me no matter how I tried to reach him. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore and stormed into his office.
"James Parker, what do you mean by this?"
I'm busy.
Before I could finish, his secretary called to say Miss Lee was on her way up. James Parker shoved me into the adjacent room, where I could see everything happening outside. I watched Emily Lee enter the office, lovingly setting lunch on the table and asking James to try her cooking. So, this was what he was busy with. Losing the project, he sought to cling to the Lee family. I don't know how long I stayed there, but eventually, it was eerily quiet outside. I cautiously stepped out, looking at the dim room, and wandered the streets in a daze. Bella still left me, while I was caught between two men.
When I received the call from the hospital, I frantically hailed a cab on the street.
No, without Bella, who am I living for?
I held Bella's cold hand, repeatedly begging her not to leave me. When the nurse came to cover her with a white sheet, I screamed at them not to touch her, and eventually, I fainted from exhaustion.
When I woke up, John Parker was anxiously holding my hand, touching my forehead.
Lily, you're awake. You had a fever.
I clung to him like a lifeline.
John, Bella. Bella is gone. I didn't see her one last time. Will she blame me?
John comforted me like a child, letting me cry in his arms. Bella's funeral didn't have many attendees. I had always told people I was an orphan, so only John accompanied me throughout. James Parker only sent a wreath as a token of condolence. He didn't even show up. With Bella gone, the contract meant nothing to me anymore. Even if I got the remaining $15 million, who would I spend it on? Perhaps noticing my mood, John stayed with me during this time. He mentioned that his uncle and Emily Lee were getting along well.
3 months later, John and I had our wedding. While changing into my reception dress in the dressing room, a shadow flashed behind me and wrapped an arm around my waist.
Lily, you've lost weight.
Thanks to you. After marrying John, I'll gain weight since he spoils me so much, right, Uncle?
I really don't like you calling me uncle.
I turned to look at James Parker, finding his current appearance increasingly ridiculous.
Thanks to you, I married him.
James let go, leaning against the table behind him, his face showing an emotion I couldn't understand.
Lily, I never meant to hurt you.
I need to go. John will worry. When James grabbed my wrist, I shook it off harshly, just as he had done to me before.
After the wedding, I tried to be a good wife, but there was always a sense of distance between John and me. He became increasingly busy, flying all over the country, but he always brought me gifts when he returned. Mr. Parker's health was deteriorating, and he had started showing signs of paralysis. Now, the Parker group was evenly divided between John and James, creating a tense situation.
One night, John came home late from a social event and clung to me as if afraid I would disappear the next second. I helped him to bed, but he pinned me down, kissing me roughly. Stop, John, you're hurting me. My actions seemed to anger him, and he suddenly sat up and slapped me hard.
Do you only like it when Uncle is on top of you?
He knew. It was James Parker. My mind went blank, and I struggled to say something, but no words came out.
After dressing, John slammed the door and left.
I crawled out of bed to find my phone, trembling as I dialed the number. James Parker, you best. Are you even a man? There was no response, only the sound of a woman's laughter. Unable to bear it, I threw my phone against the wall, shattering it.
That night was unbearably long. I curled up on the floor, replaying all the events of the past years like a movie.
Bella, sister, I'm so tired.
A few days later, John returned with a blonde, blue-eyed woman. I pushed open the bedroom door, looking at the scattered clothes on the floor.
John, if you want a divorce, I agree. Don't do this to yourself.
John poked his head out from under the covers, looking at me expressionlessly.
So what? My wife can climb into my uncle's bed, but I can't have fun with a girl at home. Get out and close the door.
At that moment, I finally understood James Parker's plan. He used me to destroy John. John and I lived like strangers for a while. One day, after receiving a call from Mr. Parker's secretary, he finally spoke to me.
Grandfather is not doing well. He wants to see us.
At the hospital, Mr. Parker, on his deathbed, held James's hand, mumbling.
I wronged Grace. Our family ruined her.
James no longer needed to hide anything. He let go of Mr. Parker's hand and adjusted his tie.
I thought you all didn't know who started that fire back then.
Mr. Parker lowered his head in guilt.
Don't blame her. She's gone. Let us go down and apologize to Grace.
Beep, beep, a beep. The life monitor showed a flat line. John rushed to press the call button, but it was too late. After the funeral, on the way home, James's car blocked ours. The two men got out and started fighting, but years of pampered living made John no match for him. Soon, his face was bruised.
I ran to John's side, worried about his injuries. James Parker, are you crazy? What more do you want?
Lily, you're worried about him. Have you fallen for this spoiled brat?
I didn't respond, unable to meet his gaze. After this incident, John became even more reckless, often going abroad to gamble with friends. When he returned, I accidentally found a flight attendant's business card covered in lipstick in his pocket, along with a wedding invitation. James Parker was getting married. To someone from the Lee family. At the wedding, they invited many reporters to promote the event, aiming to boost James's chances of becoming the next CEO of the Parker Group. I watched the couple exchange rings and kiss on stage, feeling nauseous. It was nothing but a dirty transaction. Just like mine had been. When the reporters wanted to take a family photo, I instinctively tried to avoid it, but John pulled me back.
How does it feel to watch the man you love get married?
I glared back at him, but during the photo, I was pushed to James's left, with his new wife on his right.
The next day, the photos were published, and the media praised the perfect match. But I was lost in thought because John's gaze in the photo was clearly on me the whole time.
Just then, the doorbell rang. I looked through the monitor and saw someone I never wanted to see again. He was out. He had been released from prison. Terrified, I moved to the side, not daring to look at him. But he didn't leave, even causing a scene that attracted the neighbors' attention. I had no choice but to open the door and let him stand in the hallway.
What do you want?
Lily, you've made it big, marrying into a wealthy family and forgetting about your old man.
Sorry, I'm an orphan.
Seeing my cold attitude, he immediately threw a pile of photos at my face. They were all childhood photos of me, and even some recent ones.
Don't act all high and mighty. Don't forget why I went to prison. I don't mind telling the tabloids about the Parker family's daughter-in-law's glorious past.
How much do you want?
He walked over, patted my face, and held up a number with his fingers. You're crazy! Where am I supposed to get 8 million?
Ask your husband for it. Stop pretending to be pitiful. If I don't see the money in a week, you'll be in big trouble.
After he left, I collapsed on the stairs, my knees bruised. That night, when John came home and saw my state, he surprisingly brought me a glass of milk.
If there's anything, just tell me. I'll help you no matter what.
I forced a smile and told him everything was fine.
A thunderstorm woke me up, and I found the water glass on my bedside table was already empty. Groggily, I walked towards the kitchen, but at the doorway, I felt I had kicked something soft. Turning on the light, I screamed in horror, and the water glass shattered on the floor.
John Parker was lying on the ground, covered in blood, with a knife beside him. I rushed forward to check his breathing. He was still alive.
I quickly called Dr. Harris, the Parker family's longtime private doctor, asking him to come to the villa despite the rain. After treatment, John had only one knife wound and some bruises, but his life was not in danger.
Thank you. Please keep this matter confidential for now.
The doctor nodded understandingly, as he had handled many of the Parker family's dark and little-known dealings over the years.
John, how are you feeling?
When he woke up, he stared blankly at the ceiling without saying a word. I cried worriedly beside him.
Lily, call the police. I hurt someone.
Soon, the police had investigated the entire case. When I went to see John for the last time at the detention center, he told me through the thick glass not to cry.
Lily, at our wedding, I promised to protect you for life. I've done that. Don't cry.
But I cried even harder, filled with regret.
I shouldn't have ruined him. He didn't deserve a life like this.
The lawyer handed me a share transfer contract. After signing it and walking out of the detention center, countless spotlights shone on me.
Mrs. Parker, can you tell us why Mr. Parker harmed your biological father? Can you reveal anything? Was there a conflict between them? You previously said you were an orphan. Is there more to the story? Ma'am, your husband harmed your father. Will you divorce him?
Countless questions surged towards me like a tide. I covered my ears with my hands and struggled to run outside. Suddenly, a car stopped in front of me. I opened the door and rushed in.
How is John inside?
I stared at James Parker in astonishment, my tone icy.
You are the real culprit.
James Parker smiled faintly, then grabbed my chin, forcing me to look at him.
Lily, you're becoming more disobedient.
I spat in his face.
Don't think I don't know what you've done. Even if that devil saw my news in the papers, without someone behind the scenes, he wouldn't have thought of using photos to threaten people. A drunkard demanding $8 million, who's backing him?
You've always been so smart, figuring things out quickly. What a pity.
Pity that I'm now on the opposite side of you.
James Parker didn't seem worried at all, not fearing the shares of the Parker Group I had just obtained. The car made a sharp turn, and I felt my stomach churn. I quickly asked the driver to stop. I squatted by the roadside, retching into the flowers, and James Parker squatted beside me, gently patting my back.
Lily, you and I are always on the same side. Now that you're expecting, how can you fight me?
What? I was pregnant. Half doubting, I went to the hospital and was told I was already 2 months along.
For the sake of the child, I advise you to think it over.
James Parker left me with those words, just like when he had tempted me with Bella's surgery fees years ago. This time, I made the same choice. I sold all my shares to James Parker, making him the sole ruler of the Parker Group, with no obstacles ahead.
James Parker, I truly regret ever knowing you.
He paused but didn't look back. I knew that the young man who once existed in my heart was gone forever. 4 years later, I opened a flower shop in the suburbs and lived a fulfilling life with my daughter.
Today is another visiting day. Are you ready to see Daddy?
As usual, I took my daughter along. As soon as we entered, she started chatting non-stop through the glass.
Daddy! I've grown taller. Have you been listening to Mommy at home?
Seeing the affection in John Parker's eyes, I looked forward even more to the day we'd be reunited.
Lily, my sentence reduction was approved. I heard Uncle helped a lot.
Can we not talk about him? When you get out, we'll live our own simple life.
Sensing my displeasure, John quickly changed the subject, and time passed swiftly. As I led Alice out, I noticed a black Maybach parked not far away.
Mommy, I remember that car. It often parks in front of the flower shop, and the man inside gives me candy.
I squatted down and spoke seriously to her.
Mommy told you before, you can't take things from strangers. If it happens again, I'll be very upset.
But that man said he knows you and Daddy.
Yes, he knows us, but I'd rather he didn't. I looked at the car, and the person inside looked back at me. He seemed much older. I saw James Parker seemingly wanting to approach and say something. I raised my hand to stop him. Then, I waved and turned away with my daughter. 10 years. James Parker and I had been entangled for 10 years. He was a quagmire no one wished to sink into. After dinner, I was washing dishes in the kitchen while Alice watched TV.
This afternoon, a multi-car accident occurred on the highway outside a prison. Among the casualties was James Parker, CEO of Parker Group, who was pronounced deceased at the scene. More details to follow.
The next day, as I was taking Alice to kindergarten, she asked me, puzzled.
Mommy, I don't like this black dress. Why can't I wear my pink one today?
Because today is a special day.
Daddy in heaven will bless us, ensuring a smooth life. The end.